Boys to fun.
A bread to a hungry soul.
A roadmap to a lost traveler.
Boys to fun.
A living water for those who thirst.
A clanging cymbal to those who slumber.
A guide reflection for the Sunday Gospel.
Boys to fun.
Hello, people of God. Today we are going to talk about the Gospel according to Luke in the Advent season, the second Sunday of Advent. In this Gospel we hear of John the Baptist proclaiming that the Lord is coming. This ministry of John the Baptist was a pivotal point in salvation history. But John was in the desert, and the desert is probably as far from our imaginations as a herd of camels. Now, doesn't that make you think about camels now? St. Luke wants us to think about the desert and John protesting instead of the protesting crowd around the palace or the preaching in the temple. John did it first, Jesus did it second, and the results speak for themselves. The desert is important because the desert was Israel's birthplace. God took his chosen people out of slavery, and for 40 years he marched them around the desert because they were his people. This moving around for all this period of time taught them to rely on God alone. When they forgot the lessons of the desert, God sent them into exile for 60 years, in both cases trying to show them what was essential. We can see similarities in the lives of people who suffer mentally, or people who suffer physically from cancer. When something like this happens to you or to people that you love, it tends to clarify and prioritize your life. Everything else falls aside. You have a singular focus. And when death comes, as it will come to all of us, it shows how important our relationships are. When we have fire, flood, or even robbery, we get a new sense of relative value of our possessions. Our vision then adjusts to these circumstances. Now we're in December. It's cold outside. We're preparing for Christmas. We should have a new sense of relative value of our possessions. This desert that we're into today is the opposite of the malls that we're going to preparing for Christmas. There's nothing to buy in the desert. There are no lights but the stars that allow us to ponder the wonder of God's creation, just for us. It gives our souls room to grow, to go deeper, to discover our purpose. The deserts in the southwest of our country, where immigrants came to wander and discover peace and safety. We have deserts of loneliness, even in big cities surrounded by millions of people. We have deserts of desperation coming from the selfishness of sin. The promise of Christmas is made for people, for us, that are living mentally or physically in these deserts. And so John the Baptist tells us to prepare the way of the Lord, to straighten out the twisted words with words of truth and compassion, even for our enemies, to prepare to muster courage necessary to enter the valleys of depression and desperation that trap our brothers and sisters in loneliness and fear. To be called to build and to rebuild bridges that have separated us from family and friends, to forget old wounds, even to say the hardest two words in the English language, I'm sorry. And to prepare, we must reassess the mountains and rivers that create walls between us as nations, parties, ideologies, and then, willing to see the beauty of the other side, we can descend from our mountain of ego and self-imposed righteousness. That's a lot of geography to cover if we wish to prepare for the way of the Lord. But it is all possible because God is already working on it.